Sue, we appreciate you being here. Sue has taken the way too early prediction um, category to a whole new level about the chances of winning against Michigan. I'll frame it this way. We, of course, are looking at 11 games between now and then and a whole off season still to go. So there's a lot of speculation to throw into a prediction against Michigan on the last weekend of November. However, if things play out the way a lot of people believe, and Michigan is through the course of 11 games, say the standard in the Big Ten, and Ohio State's really good, but maybe they drop one to Notre Dame, maybe they drop one to Penn State, and they're a clear underdog in that game. Take 2011 out of the equation where Ohio State's just trying to beat their rival on a given day and salvage a season. Does this suddenly flip in regards to Ohio State being more carefree, less feeling pressure, being maybe circa 2004, where, let's just let it go and we can play with more reckless abandon per se?
How do you go into that game with reckless abandon? That's just something that I just don't see happening that often, just with the pressure that's on there. Plus, Ohio State being on a 2-game losing streak and everybody, having their heads fall off right now over, Ohio State's inability to win the Big Ten, get to Indianapolis, et cetera, et cetera. I don't see any scenario where Ohio State goes in there and plays with reckless abandon. I'd like to see a situation where Ohio State goes in there and plays with 90% of its roster. That would be nice. I mean, but we know that when you're the 12th game of the regular season, the regular season finale, guys aren't going to be healthy. Ohio State dealt with it. Michigan dealt with it. Really didn't have Blake Corum last year. But, I think that all things being equal going into that game, if both teams are playing with a Big Ten championship on the line, with it being in Ann Arbor and it being a case of, if it's 11-0 and 11-0, at this point, I mean, without seeing the results of a season, do you have Michigan as a 1.5-point favorite or something in that game? That doesn't necessarily. I mean, that's kind of a neutral field pick 'em at that point. But do you give them a couple points for being on home field? But to Suzabo's, the root of her question or whatever, I think Ohio State is fully capable of winning the game. I thought Ohio State was fully capable of winning the game last year. I mean, there's so many unknowns at this point. We don't know who the quarterbacks were going to be. Is Ohio State going to be able to run the ball? Are they going to have a little bit more of a matching offense in terms of rush and pass? I mean, are they going to be giving up the explosive plays? Yes, I think Ohio State absolutely can win the game, but until we get more data points at this point, we're really just we're picking 2025 Powerball numbers at this point. I mean, I think we're just throwing what up against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I agree. I think certainly it's a long way off in the distance, and we don't know what injuries are going to impact these teams. Blake Corum coming back to Michigan is huge, obviously, for them. But a lot of top talent is back at Ohio State as well. So I guess just you'll have to get to November and see how they match up. I mean, that's the only thing you can do. If you go into it down a couple of key players, then you're going to have a tough time going in there and pulling out a win. You need all hands on deck to win that game, and it wasn't like that, obviously, this past year with the way it all went down. So I don't know. They lose the third one in a row. That would be kind of tough, but it's not like Michigan's recruiting the rings around Ohio State anyway, despite of that. So Ohio State's gotta develop their players and the quarterback position most especially, and put the best player in the Big Ten out there on the field at each position and let the chips fall where they may. But Michigan playing the game at home certainly factors well for them. Ohio State didn't handle it very well up there 2 years ago. And part of it was the weather, but I think part of it was they just assumed they were going to walk in there, as they always have, and beat Michigan and come out of there with, going on to Indianapolis and so on. Well, the last 2 years they haven't gotten the job done, and it's one thing to dwell on it and have it drive you. It's another thing to go out there and change it. And that's what Ohio State's got to do in 2023 is go out and change that narrative. And, I don't know about reckless abandon. I think you have to go into that game with some type of a controlled fury that you can execute your assignments. These games are more technical than they are acrimony, I think, at this point. I mean, the sophistication of the schemes, both offensively and defensively, it's a cat and mouse game. It's a chess game, and whoever wins that chess game, is going to win the football game. It also helps when you have X's and O's like Hutchinson and Ojabo, like Michigan did, and Ohio State didn't counter that 2 years ago when they played. But I think when you look at it deep down, I mean, these teams are very evenly matched. And again, let's get 10 or 11 games as a body of work to know what each of these teams is all about. And then we can make some more educated guesses, I guess, about what we might see on that Saturday in Ann Arbor.
But it is fun to talk about. It is fun to talk about this here in February. I mean, we're in the dog days, and I think that everybody wants to look at every hypothetical and every hypothetical matchup and every matchup that's on the schedule. And it's certainly with Ohio State being in this rare position of coming into the season on a 2-game losing streak, which is just really unheard of for recent memory. I think everybody kind of wants to know what it is, what's going to be around that that next corner. And honestly, for all of us, that's good because it gives us plenty to talk about. But at this point, I don't know how to predict what I'm expecting to see against Indiana in the season opener, let alone against Michigan in the season finale.
And I think a lot of people latch on to, obviously, when they compare two teams that are this close and they have strengths in different areas. Wow, one of these two teams lost its quarterback, and one of these two teams is going to be playing on the road. So that seems to shift and lean toward Michigan somewhat decidedly to a certain extent if you're going to make this simple analysis and not really review what's going on. And again, 11 games before then.